My name is David Bell. I'm the area director in area Q51. I'll be hosting this evening's call on behalf of Division Q. Before we get started, I wanted to introduce our division director, Rayanne George. Rayanne?
Thank you so much, David. It is a pleasure to be here tonight. And thank you all so much for taking the time to come out and learn about pathways and help to make sure that we are increasing pathways use in our division. Pathways is not new to us, but we're coming up on a time when it will be the only way that we can get Toastmasters education. So I'm really excited to have this presentation tonight. I am still personally pursuing the legacy DTM, but hopefully I will be switching over to pathways and doing a couple more speeches next year, early next year. So I'd like to take it to hand the meeting back over to David and Eric. And thanks so much. Guys, please feel free to ask questions in the chat as we go along. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rayanne. Many of you who don't know Eric, I've had the good fortune of getting to know him this past year. Eric Coy is a distinguished Toastmaster and a Pathways Guide. He's a member of the Post Oak Toastmasters and the San Felipe Plaza Toastmasters. And so Eric's going to be taking us through the boot camp tonight. Get your gear on, get ready. Eric Coy.
10 hut! As we start the boot camp, David, thank you so much for that introduction. And it is a pleasure working with you. And I've also had the opportunity to work with Rayanne. And it is just wonderful to have such leadership supporting me. And I'm hoping that everyone this evening will take something away. It may be something that they didn't know, or maybe just a little motivation to go ahead and get into pathways just a touch more. Now, well, this is what we're going to be discussing this evening. I just want to do some level setting. This is a boot camp. This is not to be a down in the weeds presentation of some advanced features. What I want in my target audience is people who either have not gotten into pathways or those who maybe have only dabbled in it. I really want this to be a quick hit type of presentation. We get you in, we get your interest peaked so that you feel comfortable exploring and moving forward. We may have to have other sessions with more advanced features, and I'm open to doing that, but that is not tonight's session. So I just wanted to clarify that. What we'll be discussing is accessing the icebreaker. For those who didn't know, or maybe I should pose it as a question, did you know that you can actually access the icebreaker even before you have a Toastmasters International login? I'll be demonstrating that and showing how you can use that to get guests or members who have not had their IDs created in Toastmasters International on their way even before then. Then we'll talk about the Navigator and the Pathways assessment. The Navigator is what I call the user guide for all things Toastmaster. And the assessment is one way you can hone in and narrow down your selection of path from the 11 that are currently available. And just to let you know, Pathways is continuing to evaluate and release new paths as they see fit, because when we first started this, there were only 10. So we now have an extra one. After that, we will discuss how do you actually navigate pathways and how do you launch your path or your curriculum. And once you've launched it and you've completed a level, how do you finalize that? How do you notify someone, hey, I've done it, I've completed a level? Then we will discuss how do you log your roles for all of the activities and all of the roles you are performing for your weekly, monthly, or however frequently you meetings. I'll also touch on the e-portfolio, which is where you can store scans of your evaluations and feedback and other things if you want to put them up there. And then finally, if time permits, I'll discuss sending badges and feedback. Badges, the system will generate some as you complete levels, but you can also give fellow members badges on things such as courage or outstanding presentations. And you can also give feedback, much like some of the clubs do with the paper forms, how you can give feedback to a speaker, or as you vote for different functionary roles such as best table topics, best functionary, best evaluator. You can actually give individual feedback or make it group feedback. So this is what we're going to be covering tonight. At the end of each section, I intend to leave a little bit of time for a question or two, and I'm hoping this is okay with everyone. Well, as I said earlier, you can actually access information about Pathways even before you've had a chance to log in. And the way to do that is come to the Toastmasters.org website, which is the website where you will come for all things Toastmasters and specifically all things Pathways. And for those who can follow my cursor, come up to the Pathways menu item, single click it, and then click Learn More. Now scroll past the Where Will Pathways Take You? Because if you click Begin Now, it's going to want you to log in. But I want you to watch as I continue to scroll a little bit. There should be a submenu visible where it says Welcome to Pathways, Paths and Projects, Watch and Learn, Sample Your First Project, FAQ and More. And if this is working correctly, it is supposed to keep that submenu there. It looks like the web browser may not be working correctly, but we can still continue. Because as you scroll down this single page, this indicator bar will move over to which section you're on, and you can always click the specific submenus to jump directly to a section. So first, let's do the Welcome to Pathways. Video, you're getting your first introduction to that multimedia experience that Pathways is going to provide. You also have a little bit of an introduction, hence Welcome to Pathways. And I would recommend you get your new members or even experienced members who maybe have been away for a while and are jumping into Pathways to watch the videos, take advantage of the material. I'm going to continue scrolling. Ah, there it is. It popped back up. And watch as I get close to the top. Notice how it popped over to Paths and Projects. Now here's something that you'll probably want to have your new members do, or if you are a new member, you will want to do, even before you take the assessment. You can actually find out a little bit about all 11 of the available paths. For example, I'm currently working on Presentation Mastery as one of my paths, and if I click Presentation Mastery, I see a brief introduction or a description of the path. I can see what paths are required, the ones that are above the elective projects buttons. And then I see that as I get to level 3, I have one required project, persuasive speaking, and then I have elective projects. This is where Pathways really starts to allow you to customize your learning and to focus on those topics of interest specifically to you. But what are those elective projects? I'm going to click the button. And in this case, for this particular path, Presentation Mastery, I get to choose 2 of the following, and I'm going to scroll up just a little bit so everyone can see it. I get to choose 2 of these following projects in order to complete this level of this particular path. So I would have to complete the persuasive speaking, that's a required, and then I get to choose 2 optional ones. And I may choose 2 different ones from someone else who's on the same path. So once again, this is how Pathways allows you to tailor your learning for what you want to get out of the program. Okay, let's continue back. And the reason I would suggest checking this out even before you have the login is because at one point, we'll talk about it in a minute, we'll talk about the assessment, and you can kind of speed through some of the assessment questions if you have a general idea of what path you may want to select. So now I'm going to continue scrolling down. I've gone back to the Pathways Learn More link, and I'm going to scroll down, and now I'm at Watch and Learn. And here you have a quick little video about what is Pathways. And then once you've actually gotten your Toastmasters International email with your login, you can watch the video, Let's Log into Basecamp. Now here's what I think is real cool. See this sample, your first project? If you click Break the Ice, and I'm going to go ahead and do it, you get to choose the language you'd like to sample your icebreaker in. And hopefully everyone can see this. I am in the actual icebreaker project, and the icebreaker is the same for all 11 paths. And I haven't logged in. This can be used as a way to get your new members or even have guests go to the website, give them a sample of what they are about to sign up for, and hopefully that'll keep that energy built up. If I click Begin, I get the standard introduction for navigation. How do I use the buttons? I'm going to just kind of come back. But this is the true Pathways experience. It's not a watered down version. It is the actual experience. And one trick I will show everyone, new members and experienced Pathways members, if you click this pop-up menu at the bottom and click your evaluation, you can jump to the resources. You can get the evaluation resource for your project. And you can do this with all of the projects. You can get an outline for the icebreaker speech. How do you organize it? But here's the best thing to me. There are still some people who, let's face it, they like paper. Paper is not a bad thing. You can print your projects. And if you click this link, it will allow you to print or download a PDF of an entire project. So for people who may not have constant access to the internet, or they may prefer to work on a project, for example, during a carpool or a van pool, here's a way you can get a paper version and you can continue working. And then once you have access to the internet again, come back in, log in, and you can pick up where you left off. And I'm going to exit out of this. And then I'll continue my last scroll down to the FAQ and more. Pathways FAQ is just that, a frequently asked questions list of a lot of common Pathways questions. One thing I do want to emphasize is that Toastmasters gives us a lot of resources, and I'll show you some other resources that are available. This is just one of the ways to access some of those resources. And once again, we haven't even logged in. So if I click the Pathways FAQ, here are some of the questions. What is Basecamp? What type of computer system do I need? Where can I find evaluation resources? Well, we're going to touch on a way to do that. I've already shown you one way. There's a link if you expand it. You can go to the speech evaluations. Here's what I told you. You can get it directly from the Your Evaluations page. It talks about links. A lot of common questions that you may have or your new members may have, direct them here. Achievements and awards. Okay, here we talk about what are achievement badges, as I mentioned earlier. The system will award badges for each level you complete. You can also download certificates, such as certificates of proficiency when you complete a path. You can choose to have employer letters sent. And here's something that you may or may not have known. It also talks about how do you achieve awards such as the Distinguished Club Toastmaster and the Distinguished Club program in Pathways. So here's a place you can go to review this information, and it's just a great summary page. That covers section 1. So David, what do we have in the chat so far?
Well, we don't have any questions at this point, but
Okay.
you really did do a great job of just exploring how to get started in Pathways before you even can log on.
And thank you for that feedback. And this is what I want you to take away and share with potential members or those who've just joined. There's no excuse now for them to not begin, for them to not start.
Eric, one of the things I noted about your club is you guys have a lot of people completing a lot of projects in Pathways in your club. And I noticed that's one of the things you do with your new members, and congratulations to you.
Thank you. Yes, we get them hooked. We get them started early. I will use probably not the best metaphor, but it's more like the drug dealer. We give them this for free. You can access your icebreaker for free, and then you become a member, and then hopefully you're hooked enough to continue and want to learn more and continue forward. I've just gotten that email in my inbox saying that my account has been set up in Toastmasters International, and I'm ready to log in. So I'm going to click login. I'm going to enter my login information. And this is the screen I am presented with. The biggest difference, notice up here where it says welcome and my name. This is the easy way, the easy link to get to your profiles. I'm going to click this. And I also want to explain there are many ways to get to some of the information I'm showing you. As you become more familiar with the website and with Pathways, use the method that is most comfortable for you. However, this is the method that the logging into Pathways video demonstrates, and I want to be consistent with what Toastmasters International is already presenting. So I'm going to use their suggestion. So I clicked on my profile information, and for those who don't know, you can check a number of things, not just about Pathways, but just about your membership in general with Toastmasters. Okay, so everyone now sees my whole address. Stalkers are not allowed, thank you. But let's go ahead and continue. I mentioned something called the Navigator. And the Navigator, as I said, is the user guide to Toastmasters. I'm going to go ahead and select English, but for those who might be comfortable in viewing it in other languages, pick the language of choice and then click View. And here's one of the things that the Navigator is great for accessing. You have, of course, a general welcome, but Toastmasters Club, it discusses things about the roles that are in a club meeting. Speeches and evaluations, giving you some pointers on how do you prepare speeches and how do you give good feedback and evaluations. You actually have a little bit about the Pathways learning experience. How do you find, select, and begin your path, which we are currently working through. And then you have links on, once you're in, how do you get the most out of Toastmasters? And then also, let's look over to the right-hand side. You have additional resources, links such as, once again, choosing your path, Toastmasters Magazine. Folks, for those who don't know, you can actually opt out of getting a paper Toastmasters Magazine, and you can view it online, and there is a historical library of previous years. one of the benefits of being a member, not only do you gain access to the current magazine issue, but you can go back through the archives. Speaking tips, video libraries, additional tips and resources. And once again, for those who maybe don't want to access an online version of the Navigator, you can download a PDF and another link to frequently asked questions. Toastmasters really presents a lot of information. Take advantage of it, explore it. And I'm going to go back now. So I'm back at my profile, and here's where I want to choose my path. So I click choose my path, and now we're on the screen where we can take the assessment and choose the path. And as I talked about earlier, for new members, the new member fee gets you one path included. For those who are wanting to do additional paths or maybe do multiple paths simultaneously, if you do them electronically, it's $20. There are some paths that you can get pre-printed materials, but notice there's an additional fee. That's why I highly recommend two things. A, choose the Basecamp option for online access, and B, I wanted to highlight early on, there is a way you can print this out yourself, or if you have to go to a friend's house to log in with your account, print out your path and projects, you'll have the materials and save yourself $25. So now that I am at the location to do an assessment, all you have to do is click take your assessment. Once again, because Toastmasters and Pathways does support multiple languages, I'm just going to select English. And if I hit start, there are about 26 different questions. I will run through a few of them, but I am not going to run through all of them. So let's just say I'm interested in public speaking, I'm interested in time management, and I'm interested in leadership. You have to select all three before it will unlock the next. And then you will start getting questions presented like this: which of the following topics is most related to the goals that I want? Leadership. Learning about leadership. And then you start getting questions where you have strongly disagree to agree. Based on your responses to these questions, it will kick out 3 potential paths for you to select. You do not have to select those paths. And in fact, I'm going to click skip assessment. And if I had gone through the assessment, it would have kicked out 3 paths, and then I could select from the other 8. Here it's just showing me all 11. Once I find a path that I want, I would click choose this path, and that material would be loaded into Pathways, and I can actually start working on it. Notice I can't do presentation mastery and strategic relationships because I've already chosen those paths. And as I said, this is a live system. This is not a demo system, so you're actually looking at my account. So that's, in a nutshell, why it's important to take the assessment, because it gives you a way to either select a path if you're unsure and if you didn't review the paths ahead of time, or you can do skip the assessment, read a little bit about each path, and then you have to select, you have to do a choose this path. Until you've done that, no information is loaded into your Pathways account, and there's nothing you can work on. And that's when you get the 30-day timer to decide, oh, is this really the path I want to go into, or do I want to get a refund and switch paths? One thing about the assessment, the responses are not saved. You can take the assessment as many times as you want to, but just remember that once you've started it, since it does not save the responses, it's best to go through completely because there is no way to pick up where you left off. So we've looked at the Navigator, we've gone through things that we now know a little bit more about the Toastmasters meeting, about Toastmasters International. We've selected a path, and now it's time to actually go into Basecamp and pathways. Now I am going to use Post Oak Toastmasters since that is my home club. David, I think you had earlier asked, you'd asked about multiple paths, and I've touched on that, and you'll see that. Did you ask about multiple clubs?
No, but it does raise a question. What if
Okay.
I'm in more than one club, Eric? Can I give credit, or can I work through pathways with multiple clubs?
You can work in pathways with multiple clubs. You will need to register in pathways, and then once the system detects that you have multiple clubs, you will have an option to select which club you're working in or working for. And I'll come back to this a little more when it comes time to completing a level. But as you can see, and as we had mentioned earlier, I am a member of 2 clubs. Therefore, I do get the option of selecting, well, which club am I working in? Now, just so that everyone knows, the work you do is tied to the person. It's tied to you, not to a club. However, when you get ready to submit a level completion request, that needs to be done per the club you want to receive the award. So I'll come back to that. Right now, we're going to go into Post Oak Toastmasters. And here's something you will sometimes see, so do pay attention. Notice right below the menu of the pathway system, it will give you alerts. And here's a real-time alert. So this Friday from 11 p.m. Central to on Friday the 6th to Saturday, December 7th, they're going to have the pathways portal down because they're doing an update. So just be aware that if someone is working late this Friday, you may get kicked out. Plan accordingly. When the portal comes back up, when the update is done, when Basecamp is active, you will log in and you'll probably get something that looks like this, the Take a Tour. Because every time there's an update, it seems to reset itself, and it's going to point out this screen. And for the first time that you log in, I would recommend pay some attention to it. First, it's highlighting the search bar where you can find people and resources, and we will definitely do that. It talks about navigating Basecamp. Once again, there are plenty of tutorials and resources for getting around this system. How do you access your transcript? Here's one method. There's another method on this page I will highlight. But notice the warning. If you haven't chosen a path, take the Pathways assessment. You have to choose a path, everyone, before it will actually load anything into Pathways for you to work and learn from. You can view feedback, you can view and request feedback. This is also how you can send badges we touched on earlier. You can view your badges, those that only you have received, whether they're from the system or from other members. You can access other tutorials and evaluation resources in addition to accessing them from each project. You can get them here at the speech evaluations. It's now going to talk about where you can find all of the things you're working on, your transcript, your curriculum, as well as other classes or other resources. You can also use this header or these action items to directly jump to a specific curriculum or specific path, I should say. And then you do that one, and that is the end of the overview. Let me do some other things. I want to cover the menu, and it's like, why am I covering a menu? Because this one's a little quirky, folks. I'm just going to be honest with you. Notice how I'm just hovering over home. I haven't clicked anything. If I want to activate a particular menu item on this screen, unlike the common interface of where you would select it and then click it, or highlight it and click it, this one you hover over it, but then you have to come down and click. And I'm going to go ahead and click Tutorials and Resources, because I wanted to show you once again plenty of places for you to get information. Evaluations resources, once again, project descriptions. Let's say I want the project description, and you can filter it by language. So I can get a project description for every project currently available in Pathways. Whether or not it's a path that I have purchased, I can at least read its description and see what it entails. I can also access the Navigator and then check compatibility. It will just go and make sure, clicking different things, it will let you know about the compatibility of your browser, just to make sure that you can use Pathways. If you're using a modern operating system and a modern browser, you shouldn't have an issue. You may get a reminder to disable pop-up blockers, or to at least allow pop-up blockers from a particular domain. Please do that. Highlight these two little buttons at the far right. One, if you hover over it, it says Universal Profile. The other one says, it's the gear, basic settings, where you can have my account and log out. Let's just click my picture, since I've uploaded it, my Universal Profile. This is where you can also, like I said, there are many ways you can access things in Pathways. You can access feedback, you can access your transcript. Your e-portfolio is where you can upload scans of your reviews, of your evaluations, and we may get a chance to touch on those. You can add a picture so that other members from your club who have logged in and registered with Pathways can see your bright and smiling face. Key things here is it also allows other people to view what roles have you done when. Okay, when would that be important? It's usually important when your VPE is getting ready to approve a level 2 request in order to allow you to get, or a level 3 request, because by level 3 you have to have completed all of the roles before you can go forward. And here's a quick and easy way that your VPE can check to see what roles you have done and when you did them. I'll also talk about in a minute, how do those dates get put in the universal profile? That's done here under the gears, and now I'm going to click my account. One is kind of a read only, except for the picture. The other one allows you to edit. And let's see, Monday, I was actually a general evaluator. I was the Toastmaster and the general evaluator, but I'm just going to count the Toastmaster for Post Oak Toastmasters. So on Monday the 2nd. Did everyone see? Hopefully everyone saw how all you have to do is click the calendar, and then you have your fairly standard date picker. Make sure you hit save, people. And then I'm going to have it go back to the home page. You can also close it and it will just keep you on that screen, but I want to have it go back to the home page for one reason. Because now I'm going to click the universal profile, and I'm going to show that it had changed from a date in September to December. December 2nd, 2009. So once I've edited something on my settings, it will reflect in my universal profile.
Quick question for you.
Okay.
How do you log roles when you attend multiple clubs every week?
How do you log roles when you attend multiple clubs? Well, honestly, you do the same thing, because all you have to do is have filled the role. The requirement, Toastmasters doesn't say you have to have filled all roles at one club. So some of these dates I can tell you now. If it's a Wednesday, it was because I filled a role at San Felipe Plaza. If it's a Monday, it was because I filled a role at Post Oak Toastmasters. So you do the same thing. Just go to the gear, my account, select the date that's appropriate, save it, and then I'll show you the other thing. I'll just do close, and in this case it saved it, but it took me right back to the same page. I'm going to do save and then go back to the home page.
All right. That's helpful. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and continue, because now we're going to talk about how do you launch the curriculum? How do you launch a path? I'm going to go into my education transcript, and if you hit the button, you will get a screen that has one or more of these icons. As I said, if it has books, it's called curriculum or a path. Since I was a pathways guide, I actually had to take training, which they put into the system, into pathways as a path. Presentation mastery is one of the paths I'm working on, as well as strategic relationships. If it's not a set of stacked books, it's a resource. There have been times when I wanted to download a generic evaluation resource. If you use one of the links within Pathways, it will put it as a resource in your curriculum. In your transcript. And then finally, things that are like computer screens are called classes. You'll see a lot of classes as you launch a curriculum. And I'm going to actually go into my presentation mastery path. So I'm going to hit, the first time you get it, you may have to hit launch. Once you've launched it, it will just say open curriculum. And so I hit the button to open curriculum. And I see we are getting very close to the end. David, can we go a few minutes over since we started a little late, but I'm going to try to wrap things up on time.
Okay.
Okay. I want to highlight some things. Notice the curriculum progress for me is 34%. This is 34% out of 100% of the entire path. Yet, for this level 2, and if I were to click on level 1, notice there's this bar graph of 100% and 100%. This is for the particular level. So I've completed levels 1 and 2 in presentation mastery, and I'm getting ready to start level 3. But let's say I wanted to do my first project. I'm going to go back to level 1 since this is boot camp. And let's say I didn't take advantage of doing the icebreaker early. I'm going to go ahead and do my icebreaker within Pathways. I would launch the project, and I just want to show everyone, you're going to see the same thing as you saw from the other website. And normally it would start at the beginning. So I'll go back to the navigation. And as you see, the same things I demonstrated before logging in, the exact same presentation, only now I am actually within Pathways. And I am going to close this pop-up window. And once again, let me demonstrate one other thing. I'm going to launch it. And I just wanted to show that if you go to your evaluation, You have access to all the resources, the evaluation resource for this particular project, printing the project, as well as in this case, additional resources such as the icebreaker speech outline. Key things here. As I said, I've done level 1. In order to go to level 2, you would have to do a level completion. And normally you would have, once you've completed all of these projects, a launch here, and it would send notification to the base camp managers for your club, which are your VP of Education, your president, and your secretary. Either of them, and only one of them, can approve a request to move forward in Pathways. Now, we've had some questions. What if you're a member of 2 clubs? Well, what if you are a member of 2 clubs? I am going to actually log out, because if you remember, when I went into it, I was at Post Oak Toastmasters. Let's say I want to go to San Felipe Toastmasters, my second club. If I want to give a club an award or have them get credit, it's a 2-step process. And we're kind of doing 4 and 5. It's a 2-step process. Part 1, and I'm going to show you another way how you can jump directly into a project. See how I have not completed I've completed level 1 projects, but I have not submitted the level completion request. If I wanted to do that here, I would hit activate, which I can do. I would hit launch, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to necessarily give San Felipe Plaza my level completion. But I would launch it. It would have instructions on how to submit the level completion request, but I want to be logged in for the club who is going to get the award towards their DCP, their Distinguished Club Program. The other thing, as a member, I highly suggest you do, because it is a 2-step process. After you've submitted the level completion request, hit up your VP and say, hey, I've just submitted a level completion request for our club. I need you to now enter the award under club leadership on Toastmasters International. Because just completing a level in Pathways does not submit the information over to Toastmasters International. And Toastmasters International is the only way you as a person, as a member, and your club get the credit for having members who've achieved certain awards. That was a combination of 4 and 5. What's in the chat now, David?
Well, we did have another question back to the question you asked earlier.
Okay.
Does it store a history of roles performed?
Does it store a history of roles performed? The only way it is storing this history is if you are entering them. So you would go to My Account, but there is no previous tracking. Now, for those of you who are using some of the electronic scheduling, such as Free Toast Host or Easy Speak, you may have a way of having your website administrator pull that information, or if you keep copies of your agendas, you may have access to that historical information. But Pathways does not store how many times you've done counter or general evaluator. It only stores the date until you update it. Great question, though. I want to talk about sending badges and feedback. I believe I am logged in as San Felipe Plaza. Remember the search bar we talked about earlier on this Basecamp homepage? One of the neat things is I can type the full club name or partial club name, San Felipe, and I can actually pull up everyone who is currently registered under this club in Pathways. So by typing your club name, you can actually pull up all the members who have registered, as well as you can see the club entry for all the base camp managers, and you can find your club number. If there's an opportunity or if there's a need for getting your club number, here's one way you can do it. Now, for all of the people listed, I am going to select our president of San Felipe Plaza. And notice it goes to his Basecamp profile, and I'm going to have to talk to our president about entering his roles, because notice on his universal profile, it does not have any dates. But I want to give him some feedback. So I would come within his profile to feedback, and now I can just type what I want. Great job at being being charter president. And if I hit post, it works a lot like other social media platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn. Other people who've registered, but only from that club, can see the feedback. And if I wanted to send a badge, I can come over and click the icon, send a badge. And here are the options that members can send to each other: collaborative, courageous, exceptional, innovative, and inspirational. I'm going to send him a courageous badge because it really took some convincing for him to be the charter president, but he accepted the role, ran with it, and has done an outstanding job.
Now, how will he know that you've done this?
Now, he would only know this if he goes into when he logs in, he would have to come to his profile and hit feedback.
Okay.
So it's not like it's going to send him an email, but he would have to kind of periodically check to see if anyone has sent feedback. Now, if Chris had requested feedback, he might be more proactive at checking because he's expecting it, in which case he could check and see the responses that have come to the feedback request he submitted. So I went over here and I clicked my universal profile. Now I'm going to hit my e-portfolio. You have a place where you can see documents and badges. If you go to documents, you can upload for level 1. For each level, you can upload your evaluations or any other supporting information. You do not have the ability to rename the folders. You do not have the ability to create new ones. But for something and you do not have to use this folder structure. I could put a level 5 evaluation in a level 1 folder, or I could just do my documents. I tried it, and that's why there's one file here. But because I have another cloud service that I use, that I scan and upload my documents, I don't use the e-portfolio option. But if you don't have another cloud service that you're using, this is made available as part of your membership.
So this is, I think you just answered this question, but I'll ask it anyway.
Okay.
Where do I store the evaluations?
Well, you can either take a picture of it as a JPEG or GIF or GIF. Some people prefer soft Gs. Or there are some phone apps such as Adobe Scan. I believe Microsoft has Microsoft Lens, something similar. Anyway, once you've gotten it as a file, as a compatible file format, picture or PDF, here's where you can store them. Actually, let me do one more thing. When you are done with your Pathways session, come over to the gear, click log out, and you'll be taken back to your Toastmasters International screen. Notice logging out of Pathways does not log you out of Toastmasters International. I'm going to go ahead and log out of Toastmasters International. And David, you can stop the recording.
Eric, one quick question for you. Can you
Okay.
work on more than one path at a time?
Yes, you can, and I will actually show you as we're about to log in. And I am a prime example, because when we log in, I just want to let people know this is not a demo system. You're actually going to be looking at my account. So there are going to be some things that may look slightly different from when you're logging in. Things such as, since I'm a VPE, I am also considered a Basecamp manager, so I can approve path completions for members of Post Oak Toastmasters, and there will be a few other options that you might see. Also, you will see multiple paths or curriculum in the system, because I am working not only on presentation mastery, but also strategic relationships. There is no limit to the number of paths you can work on. It's just do what you need to do and get it done. Did that
Okay.
answer your question, David?
It did. Can you change your pathway once you start one already?
Yes, you can. I believe you have 30 days from the time you've selected a path. And let me kind of back up. For new members who are totally new to Toastmasters, I believe the $20 membership fee actually goes towards the path. Now, you'll have to select a path in order to have it loaded, have the curriculum materials loaded in Pathways. And once that has been done, I believe you have 30 days, and you can contact Toastmasters International directly. I cannot remember the email address off the top of my head, but if you go to contact us, which, let me go ahead and do that now. You have the phone and fax, things about memberships. You have Pathways, general quest, education program. There we go. That's the one I could not remember. Supply orders also for return and refund policy. So those are two email addresses to make note of. Paths and path requirements if you have questions about a particular path. And if you have a question about a return or refund, it would be supply orders. And then let me go back to the first one, education program, singular, both at toastmastersplural.org.
Thanks, Eric.
David, what else is in the chat?
Can an officer log in the roles? And I know we're getting close to our time, so I may hold off on some of these questions so that you can finish your presentation. But if you would just answer that question, can an officer log in the roles for you?
No, only you have access to your profile. Officers and even officers and some other members may be able to see what's on the universal profile, but they cannot really see specific completion information except through reports. Officers cannot do anything in your profile. So that's the accountability. You are responsible for tracking your own progress and making sure, as we get ready to go to the next sections, that when you have completed a level, that you've submitted the request. David, I have 803, and that was all of the topics that I have. What do we have in the chat?
Okay, so at 8:03, we appreciate everybody's time. We do have one question.
Okay.
I'm new to Toastmasters. I have completed 3 speeches. Where do I log for credit?
You've completed 3 speeches and you have logged, and you want to know where do you log for credit. Have you selected a path for Pathways?
That's a great question. So you start there.
Well, that's what the first thing I would say is, if you haven't, I would follow some of the suggestions I've given and select a path.
Presentation mastery is the answer to your question.
Okay, so, oh, good. And then I would go into, for example, the icebreaker. And if you've done the icebreaker and you have the evaluation and you have the blessing of your VPE, here's another trick, people. All you have to do is fill out the your evaluation after and save that, and that will trigger the system that you've completed that project or that work. So once that's done, that's how you can let the system know that you've done a particular project, and you have the documentation, the evaluation, where you can store in the e-portfolio